tonight's Muslim. All right, so now we're getting ready to make a siyum on this parak. Right? Daf Nun Daled. Where do we leave off? So at the
bottom of the Gimel on the beis.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Bottom of the Gimel is 2 lines up from the bottom. So we were discussing the sugya where they had this simonim of different amayroyim saying different dinim, and there was one about miyun, yavama, shniya, arusa, va'anasa. Right, those are the 5 cases. So we already did 2 of them. Right? We did 2, miyun and yavama. So again, we're talking about cases of when does the father dies. So the part of the kesuba is that he has to feed the kids. He has to feed his wife's kids, at least until they either grow up, like we saw yesterday, either they grow up or until they get married, whichever comes first. So the Gemara is going through these different scenarios of does he really have to support? But the first one was miyun, meaning she did miyun and now she's going back to her house because she walked out on the guy that her brothers and her mother married her off to. That was the first case. And the Bas Yavama was the second case. Meaning the guy died and then he went to his brother, then the brother got married and then had a child and then he died. So whose estate has to pay for this girl's food? Fine. Go up to the third case now. Boy Rebbe Lazar, Bashniya. Now we're talking about Rabanan, like cases where these guys did something wrong in the first place. But okay, we said that Shniyas is the second level relatives, right? You have the first level relatives that you're not allowed to marry, which is, let's say, mother, daughter, right? But then you have second level, which is grandmother, granddaughter. So those are Shniyas. And that's a Rabanan to keep you away from the regular araya. So they said Shniya. So what happens if a guy married a Shniya and then he had a kid and then he dies? So does she get mezainis or not? All right, so let's see. So by Revelation, Bashniya yesh la mezainis. Does she get mezainis? Ayin la mezainis. Does she not get mezainis? I mean, because they were over nisa derabanan. So this daughter is a result of a couple not listening to an Isser derabanan. Right, so what's the din? So Gemara on Talmud Aleph now. Even the less kesuba, since Lamaisa there's no kesuba here, meaning the mother doesn't get a kesuba. So therefore, if the mother doesn't have a kesuba, then of course the daughter, meaning it's a t'nai in the kesuba, right? It's a t'nai in the kesuba that the father has to feed the wife's kids or his own kids after he dies from his Yerusha. Right? But if here she doesn't get the kesuba because she was an Issa D'Rabbanan, so then maybe the daughter doesn't get it either. Right? So keeping the less la kesuba, less la mezainis. Since there's no kesuba, therefore there's no mezainis either. The mother was over on the Issa. She married somebody she wasn't allowed to marry. So what did the daughter do wrong? She's just a product of parents who didn't listen to the Rabbanon. So like a Rabbanon, the Rabbanon didn't make a knas. So that's the Shiloh. So Teiku. It's very interesting, tzad, because you have by Mamzer, right? You have by Mamzer, what did Mamzer do wrong? Right? But yet the Mamzer gets the brunt of the punishment. And here the Gemara has the tzad, what did the kid do wrong? Why shouldn't she be fed? She didn't do anything wrong, but her parents misbehaved. So, but so that's the tzad. Maybe that's why it's a teiku. Fine. Then the fourth case, Boy Rava Basa Rusa, meaning they were engaged and then they couldn't control themselves, so they slept with each other and then they had a baby. Do they get? Does he have to feed? Then he dies. Does he have to feed the daughter or not? Yeah, even the Isla Ksuba, Isla, since there is a Ksuba, so Isla Mazainis, she also gets fed. The Maisa, the Takanas Chachamim making a Ksuba is only from marriage. Right? And here they were never married. So Lesla, therefore, she doesn't get anything as part of the Ksuba. Right? So Teiku, again, another Teiku. Fine. The
Why
last.
why don't we say here that she did nothing wrong either? This kid did nothing wrong. Why are we not bringing that side also?
Because here I think the pshat is because here this shiloh is whether there's a kesuba at all. Meaning you're right. In the case where they were shnias, there's also no kesuba, but there because we're punishing the mother that she's not entitled to a kesuba. So why should the daughter get punished? Here, the whole concept of kesuba does not applicable until marriage, meaning the whole takana that a man has to have a kesuba in order to be with his wife is the woman has to have the kesuba is from marriage, not from engagement. So therefore, it's a little different, meaning the whole concept of the kesuba might not be there. That's the way I'm understanding it. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. There's a boy of Papa Basan Lusa. Let's say he raped her, right? So we know that he has to marry her. And then, but they had a daughter from this, and now he dies. So Yesham Mazanis. Does she have to get fed or not? So I'll leave it to Rabbi Yosi, but Rabbi Yehuda like to according to Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yehuda, there's no shiloh. Why? Because he holds the Amar Yeshla Ksuba Mana. The woman gets a ksuba of 100, meaning if she ends up marrying this guy, so then is there a ksuba at all? And Rabbi Yehuda says there is a ksuba, but it's only 100 because she wasn't a basula, even though she wasn't a basula from the rapist, but the Maisa, since she wasn't a basula, so ksuba is only 100. So according to Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yehuda, there's no question that the daughter that came from this rape is also going to have to be fed. According to the Rabanan, who said there's no kesuba. The Amri Yotze Kesef concept of kesuba. Right, meaning when he gave her kesef for the fine, right, he has to give her the kesef, right? So that's considered in the place of the kesuba. So she already got her kesuba. So according to that shita, even the less ksuba, since she doesn't have ksuba, less lamazayne. So again, feeding the daughter is part of the ksuba. So since she's not getting a ksuba, she doesn't get fed either. Right? Dilma ksuba halapain of leitzia. Why did Chachamim make the whole takana of ksuba? So that guys wouldn't just divorce women, marry them, use them, divorce them, and no problem. So they made them have to pay a lot of money. But here, this guy's not allowed to divorce her. Because since he raped her, he's stuck with her. But that's the only reason why there's no ksuba. But everything else, he should have to give. Meaning the reason why there's no ksuba, meaning the 200 or the 100, is because it's only to make sure that he doesn't divorce her. Here he can't divorce her. Good, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't have to support her and support the daughters. Right? So that's a tzad that he would have to give it. So the Gemara says, Teiku again, it's a teiku, so we don't know. Right? So these last few cases were teikus. Fine.
Yaakov.
Yeah.
The same way the first cases, the shnias and the other cases, he did something he wasn't supposed to do. They both did something they weren't supposed to do. So now the guy gives her a get, no?
You mean he gives her a get with nothing, meaning he's not supposed to do it?
Yeah, and he gives her a get. So she don't know he's not supposed to do it. She was 6 years old. She never went to beis Yaakov. She never went to seminary. She hasn't the faintest idea.
I mean, so if he gave her a get, okay, but I guess if she would go to Bezdin, they would say, okay, this whole thing is a scam, no? No, isn't that what it's saying? Isn't
Yes.
that? Yeah. So I'm saying, so doing that would be I don't know. I don't think Bez will let it fly. So I get, but that's not a practical answer. It doesn't answer you.
They let the cases fly. They haven't. I don't want to start. I'm sorry. I don't want to start.
Yeah.
They let the Kohen Gadol is married to a woman he's not supposed to be married to. To me, it's beyond belief. I don't know. What is the Gemara talking about?
Right.
What kind of society did they have? What it was like you said, we're in pretty good shape compared to them.
Yes, it's a shver. It's hard to understand. It's hard, unless you're just saying that these are theoreticals, right? That's the only way out. Anyways, okay, so let's see about that. So the Mishnah continues and says that you're gonna meaning if the man dies, the woman gets to stay in his house and gets fed until she goes off to get married. So Tanur of Yosef, it's only in the house, but not in I don't know exactly what, a bungalow. It's only if he has a house. If he has a bungalow where it's tiny and everybody's crammed in there, he does not have to let her live with everybody else, right? So that's for sure. But basically, because that's a pasuk, the diak in the pasuk, and it's only if the house can accommodate her, then he has to. But the question is, Mizayni Isla, but he still has to feed her. Meaning, even though he can't house her, but he still has to feed her. But Maravashi says no. If he can't house her, then he doesn't have to feed her either. But is not like Maravashi, and we split housing and feeding, two different things. If he can't house her, that's fine. But feeding, he would have to do. Fine.
Is this like a Tanai Batul, Maisa Batul, Machlokes?
I don't know. I didn't really get the lumdus what the connection between the two is. I don't know. You think that's what it is?
It looks like it. The Tanai is the beis. The Maisa is the Mazinus. Tanai is Batul, Maisa Batul, or
okay, yeah. I don't know if they have such lamdanim back then, but the chayr, it sounds right. No, chas v'shalom. I'm just saying. The pashtus is, one tanai is dependent on the other, right? That's what you're saying, right? If you can't have in the house, then you don't have to feed her. That's what. But the law is not like that. So even if he can't house her, he still has to go send her. He has to send her food to her wherever house.
I think Lamaisa in general we paskin Tanai Batul Maisa Kayan. That would fit.
I hear that. That's a good order. Okay, so very good. So fine. Let's say somebody wanted to marry her, meaning the almana, b'nispaisa, and she was nispayas, meaning the guy proposed, and she said, "Okay, I'm going to marry you." Ein la mezainis. So then that's it. She doesn't get mezainis anymore. Why? Because when she decides to get married to somebody else, that means she's done with her husband. Right? So the Gemara says, "Haloi nispaisa yesh la mezainis." But if she was not nispaisa, meaning if she didn't say yes to the proposal, then she does get fed. Meaning, why should she?
I didn't understand. What's the Misa that triggers, actual Misa triggers the fact that the Mizaynis stops? I mean, just because she thought about marrying somebody, she didn't commit, she didn't do any Misa.
Yeah, but she's showing that she's out of his house.
No, she's showing that she's thinking about moving on.
You said there has to be a Misa. Her thought process.
Why else wouldn't you stop? Why would you stop giving Mizaynis?
Because she's clearly showing that she's
okay, but she
in life.
So let me ask this: so somebody who's dating somebody means that her first husband's not.
She said yes to marriage. She didn't just date
him.
She said yes to marriage.
What did she do? What's the kinyan? I'm asking you.
There was no kinyan.
That's no kinyan.
So no I'm kinyan. Asking you. So what's triggering? What kinyan's being made that's triggering the mezainis to stop?
No kinyan. Who said we need a kinyan for that?
Why else are you stopping the mezainis?
Because she said she's out. She's already looking for proposals from other people. So she's out.
Showing she's ready to move on.
If you're a sports fan, this guy's already, halfway through the season before the trade deadline. They're getting rid of him. But he still has obligations to his team. Not yeah, that's true. But once he starts fielding,
Kozman, he's getting paid. His thing. He's getting.
Zev, when they're going to trade somebody, he doesn't play that day.
What do you mean? When someone gives their
Don't
2
play
week
that
notice,
day.
someone
Correct,
gives 2
they
week
take 'em
notice
out.
that they're quitting, they never work as hard. Yes, they still get paid for the next 2 weeks, but they never work as hard. They show up the next day, they don't show up.
Okay, but you
It's
still
just-
and they're
mechuyev to
not
give the
getting
paycheck.
bonuses either. You're not
Okay,
giving
but it's just a
bonuses.
fact of life. It's just what happens.
Or you could look at Rashi. Rashi says that the Tanai is Megar al Manuseh. That's what it says in the kesuba. Kol Yimei Megar al Manuseh, as long as you're an almana. The question is when that stops. That's what we're dealing with now. When is
Well,
she
I'm sorry,
considered
no,
an
that
almana?
doesn't. I don't know why that answers it. But she's once she's that Adarabah, that backs Zev up.
What do you mean? That's what we're
She's
dealing
still an
with.
almana just because she's dating. Just as she's
She's
dating
not
doesn't mean
dating.
she's not an
She got
almana.
engaged.
No, but then we're saying, but if she's, but if
Not
she's
a-
not,
she got
husband's-
engaged.
the
What we
first
call
husband's-
engagement.
Husbands, the chassim have an obligation to pay her until she gets married to somebody else.
No,
you can't stop
until-
that.
As long as she's an almana. That's the
She's an
question.
almana,
right,
What's
so
she's
that
not
count?
that's Zev is
married.
saying she's still an almana. She never got married to the guy.
Never got married.
There's halachas l'mashal, for example.
What do you mean? If she breaks it off,
for
if she's not
yasim,
an almana, if she breaks it off,
there's a halacha about what's considered a yasim. Someone who lost their father is always a yasim until he's 120. No, it's not true. There's no dinim of yasim past a certain age, past a certain status.
Right.
Is she considered an almana once she's engaged? That's the shaila.
Yeah, but first of all, the next line the Gemara is saying Mashma Haloin is spicy Yesh Lamazainis, then the Gemara is going to say that it's not. Right? That even
That's
not
the back and forth. Yeah.
correct, but the Gemara's maskana is going to be that she's not.
As
that
soon as
she
she's
doesn't
engaged,
get.
it's done. She's not an almana.
No,
She's dinei almana.
no. Let's see the next line. Look at the next line. The Gemara asks again. Hotline is spicy, yes, but if she didn't say yes, but she's stopped dating, it's mashma that she still has to be fed, right? Which the Gemara doesn't understand. So Gemara answers, Amar Rav Anan l'didim partially minei de marshmur. Amra machmas pliny bali. If she says that she's not saying yes because of the covet of her original husband, meaning she doesn't want to slap her original husband in the face, and that's why she's saying no to the proposal. But if the reason why she said no to this guy is not because she cares about her love for her original husband, but the reason why she said no is because she just doesn't like the men that she's dating, then she doesn't get mezainis, right? And therefore she's out, right? So it really depends why this woman is saying no to the shidduchim. If she's saying no out to the covet of her husband, then she's still considered part of her husband. But if she's saying no because she thinks she's from the Besser mention, then she's out. So then that doesn't. You need to. That's what Zev's asking. Like just because she's that, why should she be out for that? So we're saying that clearly there's a break in the emotion here. I don't know, the emotional attachment. There's a break.
Emotional attachment doesn't dictate whether you cut up your obligations. I don't care what.
Yes, it does.
No,
yes,
it doesn't.
that's what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying that yes, it does. Exactly what the doctor said. It does. It cuts it off. Finished. If once she shows that she's stiffing the husband in the face, then you're out. That's it. You're out.
That's it. Once that wife has the first fight with her husband, that means she wants out.
Can I ask? So the minute she says yes, she's done with the dead husband. The other guy doesn't have to give. The estate is not giving her anymore, and now
That's
she's getting.
for sure. That's for sure.
And
once
now she's getting from
yes.
the new. She's getting from the new. She's not even married yet, and she's getting from this guy, the new guy.
If that new guy dies, is she getting Yerusha from him?
If the new
She
guy
doesn't
dies,
even have to have a new guy.
Depends
She
if
just
she killed him.
shows
Depends
she
if
doesn't
she
want.
killed him. Depends if she
She's
killed
not
him or not,
connected
like
to
she
the
killed
old
the
one.
first husband.
So I'm saying, so who's supporting her right now? Nobody.
Who's supporting her? Right. If the
no,
first
says that
second,
she's out. She's out. Like doctor said, she doesn't have to have a new husband. Once she's dating, and the reason why she's not getting engaged is because she doesn't like the men she's dating, she is out.
and she doesn't yarish anybody, she's stuck. Once she puts in her mind she wants to remarry because The poor guy.
She's not
said first
yashning anyways. One second. She's not yashning anyways. No, she's not yashning anything anyways from her first husband. Her first husband died already.
The first husband died. So now she says, Oive, you know, I don't want to sit in Almana my whole life. I want to go out and date somebody else now. So she's going to want to go out and date somebody else, right? So then automatically the mezainis stops because she just, because her husband's buried 6 feet under, right? She doesn't want to sit in her house alone the rest of her life. So she decides, I want to marry another guy now. Okay, so
right.
as
Maddie Cohn should live and be well. In all these cases, he says, when she puts on the red dress, means she's out of here.
That's exactly right.
So then all of a sudden
she stops looking like a Sicilian almana and she puts on the red dress. She's out.
She should sit like an almana in the house and wait because she has no way of supporting.
If she's a smart lady, if she's a smart woman, she tells the shatchanim when she says no. I'm not saying no because I don't like the guy. I'm saying no because I love my husband, my original husband, too much. And then they still have to feed her, right? If she's smart, that's the way she plays the game.
She's playing the game. That's all, right? But she can go out.
She's got to play the game right.
I love my first husband. I'm going out, but I love my first husband.
Correct.
So then all right. This conversation exhausted itself. I don't know.
Okay.
Does it make sense? I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Okay. No, Shine. That's okay. Let's see, Vaitil. Maybe that'll clear the sugi up a lot. So, Rav Chisda, Zinsa ain't la mezainis. Let's say she's mezana. Now, mezana is obviously not as nus because she's single. So it just means she was promiscuous, right? So then she doesn't get mezainis because obviously she no longer has a connection to her husband if she was mezana. Amar Rav Yosef, kichlo pirchusa ain't la mezainis. If you didn't understand the previous one, then this one.
She really puts on makeup and finishes.
She starts trying to look attractive. Kichla means makeup. Pirchusa means on the hair, right? Ain la mezainis. Then she doesn't have.
She wears a lace sheitel for the first time.
There you go. I didn't want to go down that road. Does it mean her sheitel? Does it mean her hair? Right? Okay. From the Gemara, it's mashma her hair. Right? It's not mashma she's wearing a sheitel. At least I think. Right? But okay. So either way, she starts getting made up. Ain la mezainis. She doesn't give us because why is she getting herself made up? Right? If she's not looking for other men, which clearly bisman hazeh, this would go out the window because most women are making themselves up not for their husbands. They're making themselves up to go out in the street. Different shmooze for a different time.
For other husbands.
Or maybe not a different shmooze, not for a different time. Okay. So Mandom Zinsa. So the one that says that if she was mazana, she loses her support. Kol shekain kichlo birchasa. So it's a kol shekain if she gets made up, which is interesting because why? If she was actually mazana, clearly that's showing more that she's done with her husband. Why is it that she's just getting herself made up is even worse? But the pshat is because znus could be a one-time, she could have had a one-night stand or something like that, where she gave into her desire, and that was that. But if she's constantly getting herself made up, then clearly her mind is made up. Fine. But the one that says that only if she gets made up does she lose the support of her husband's Yerusha. Aval Zinsa Isla, but znus, she will still get money, my time of Yetzer Ansa, because the Yetzer Hara got to her. So there's two different ways of approaching this thing. But the halacha is not like any of these gemaras. Eliki Adam, Rav Yehuda, Mashpur, Hatevas, Ksubasa, Bepestin, Ein La Mezainis. Only time that she loses out, so Zev, that at the end you win, right? That the only way she loses her ksuba money, not ksuba money, I'm sorry. The only way she loses her support is if she goes to bed to stop, and she doesn't, then she stops getting a mezainis. Meaning the mezainis is there to keep her going, to keep her afloat, and that was for you, Jesse, until she gets her ksuba, right? But once she gets her ksuba, then that's it. Then they don't have to feed her anymore. Yeah. So fine. The lighting one says it's not true. But Tanya machro ksuba. So let's say she sold her ksuba. Mashkana ksuba. So she used the ksuba as a mashka, meaning she needed money. So she used her ksuba as collateral, and she said, "By the way, I have this ksuba coming to me. It's worth some money. So lend me some money now, and worst comes to worst, you'll use my kesuba. Also, so kesuba sa paitiki la'acher, or she made her kesuba as an apaitiki. Right? It's
a lien, like a
well,
lien.
It's like a lien, but it's Shadas. Why is it so much different than a mashkin? Right? It's really a paitiki is really for going on land. Okay, well, either way, when she does any of this with her kesuba, ain't la mezainis. She doesn't get mezainis anymore, right? Because she's using her kesuba now. Once she's using her kesuba, she's out from mezainis. So when it says hani in avatavas lights, mashra these, only by these does she give up on getting her food. But tavas lie. But if she asks for her kesuba, she's not going to lose her food until she actually gets the kesuba. So our answer is no. Hani bein bebezdin bein shaloi bebezdin. These, meaning if she sells a kesuba, uses it a mashkin or as a paitiki, meaning she's using it as collateral, then she loses her. She's not going to be fed whether she did this in bezdin or whether she did not. Tavas. But if she asks for her kesuba money, then bebezdin in shaloi bebezdin like. Then only if she asks for it in bezdin does she lose her support. Not in bezdin, she does not lose her support because then she stopped talking and she's saying, "Okay, give me my kesuba." So that's it. So the bottom line is the only time a woman loses, the only time an almana starts losing her support from the Yerusha of the husband is when she actually goes to Bezin and asks for a kesuba. Fine. Then the Mishnah continues and says, and this is what the people of Yerushalayim did, right? And that's meaning that they would feed her until the kesuba. But in Yehuda, what they did, that you get your food until the Yarshim decide to give the kesuba. Meaning, according to the ones in Yerushalayim, it was up to her when she wants to get her kesuba, and then she loses her support. But in Yehuda, they did the opposite. Yehuda, they said, no, the Yarshim could decide, you know what, we don't want to support her anymore. Let's just give her a kesuba and be done with it. So that's a big difference. According to Yerushalayim, the ball's in her court. According to Yehuda, the people in Yehuda, the ball was in the Yarshim's court, in the son's court. So Itmar, Rav Amar Aloch L'Kanchi Yehuda. Rav said Aloch L'Kanchi Yehuda, and meaning and they could just give her a kesuba and let her walk. Shmuel Amar Aloch L'Kanchi Galil. The Aloch is like Kanchi Galil, which is like Yerushalayim, and therefore the ball is in her court. So Bavel v'chol parvadahu nog karav. In Bavel and all its suburbs, they were noyeg like Rav, and therefore the bowl was in the Yarshim's court. Naharda v'chol parvadahu nog k'shmuel. Naharda and all its suburbs went with Paskin like Shmuel. Fine. So Gemara brings an interesting case. He bas Nechuza daven desiva lanarda. So somebody from Nechuza, right, which is by Bavel, married somebody from Narda. So now, of course, they each have their own minhagim. Also, Rav Nachman. So they came from Rav Nachman. Shama lekala the bas Nechuza, right, and he heard from her voice that she's from Mechuza. Right? She's from Mechuza. So Amr Lahu, Bavel and all its suburbs, which includes Mechuza, goes like Rav, right? And since Rav Paskin like Yehuda, so therefore the Yarshim could just tell her, "Here's your kesuba money. We're not feeding you anymore." So Amrulay, so they said to him, right? But she's marrying good. She's from Mechuza, but she's marrying somebody from Nahardar, and the halacha should go like Nahardar, which is that the Yarshim cannot just give her the kesuba. It's only when she's ready to take the kesuba. So he said back to them, Nachman said back to them, if that's the case, then you're right. Then the halacha, they go like Shmuel, and you have to go with the husband's hanhaga, or whatever the city is. And since the hanhaga is like what we just said, that she's allowed to eat until she chooses to take the kesuba, so that's how you have to pass it, which we've said many times before already. That the Ramesha has chuvas on this. The halacha goes with the husband. The halacha goes with the husband. not with the wife. So and really, I think Rashi is mashma that it's the husband. They decided they're going to be living in the husband's town, which is usually the way it goes, right? So since they're going in the husband's town, you got to keep the halachas the way the minhag makom, and the minhag makom was that you don't kick out the almana until she says she wants the kesuba, right? Meaning again, and we've said it a few times, this whole thing that you do like your father's minhag, that seems that only happened in America when there was no minhag amakum, so the chachamim decided everybody goes with their father's minhag. But before that, when they were established minhagim, you mechuyev to go with that minhag. And if the husband chooses to settle in a town where that's the minhag, so then that's it. That's what you have to do. So therefore, the halacha goes with him. Fine. So then it says, "Va'ad heicha nardo." How far is nardo? Meaning, how far do we say is a suburb or nardo? So ad heicha the sagi covered the nardo, right? Meaning wherever they use the kav as the measurement, right? Meaning like how do you call it in America, United States? We use what type of measurement? Forgot the names. Meaning Canada uses the metric system.
Meters,
right?
and there they use feet. Here they use feet.
Right, meaning it's metric, right? By them, it's the rest of the world is metric. United States is a different way. Meaning, so as you get to the Canadian border with the United States, so any place that still uses metric will be considered part of Canada, right? So the same thing here. If you're using kav, then near Narda, then you can be considered part of Narda. Okay, so then the next issue, itmar, almana. So by an almana, we're trying to figure out how much of kesuba you give to almana. So Rav Amar Shaman Mashaleh, you even count what's on her, meaning the clothing that's on her. Let's say she's supposed to get. Let's say you say the equivalent of a kesuba nowadays $20,000, but she's wearing clothing that's worth $1,000. So therefore, that clothing came from the husband, or belonged to the husband, and now she's getting it. So therefore, she only gets 19,000. She's not getting 20,000 because we count the clothing that's on her. And the Mefarshim say that it doesn't just mean dafka the clothing that's on her. It's all of her clothing and all of her belongings. So if she has $20,000 worth of belongings, really, they don't have to give her anything. But that's the shita of Rav. Shmuel Amar ain't shaman mashallah. We don't evaluate it like that. We just say that it became hers when the husband gave it to her, or when she bought it, it's hers, and finished. It has nothing to do with the kesuba. And the opposite is by a locket. The locket is basically like a live-in maid, right? So meaning since the person is living in the house, so they obviously are not going to get paid the same amount of money that somebody who's not living, right? So a lot of times you have people have live-in maids, and that's true. This is the way it is in summer camps, right? These guys never work the whole summer, and they come out of there with $100. Why? Because they got room and board and food from the camp, right? I was speaking to a counselor. He worked a month, right? And putting kids to sleep and this now. You know what the guy came out with? $270 for a month's worth of work, right? Okay, plus tips. But I'm saying that's the same thing here, right? When you have a worker who's living off of you, so you pay him a lot less. The question is, you have to clothe him. So if you clothe him, when it comes time for him to get paid, do you subtract the amount of the clothing? So we're saying that the Machlokes, Rav and Shmuel. Rav says by the almana you evaluate the clothing, and Shmuel says you don't evaluate the clothing. But they switch opinions by a worker that's in your house.
I had a shiloh. I just a shiloh. The one of the chiyuvim of a husband is sheikh sus v'aina. So every
Correct.
single article of clothing belongs to her.
No,
It belongs to him anyway. It's his chiyuv to give it to her.
Masha kantz isha kantz baila.
That's what do you mean? What do you mean?
Whatever the woman buys really goes to her.
He's not buying. He had a chiyuv to buy it for her.
Correct, but then it's really still his.
He had a chiyuv to buy it for her, but it's really his.
Well, yeah. Well, we're gonna have to see later on in the Masechta. I think, it's gonna be later on exactly how that works. I think it's later on, but either way. But we're saying that's exactly the shaila here. Is that considered hers or not? That's a Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. So we're saying it's the opposite by the locket, by the worker. Of kahana masni b'chein b'locket, not the opposite by locket, but the same din by a locket. Right? Umanach basimana, and in order to remember, he put down this siman. Yasma varmalta shalach upuk, and a yasam, right, an orphan and an amana, let them shalach means send them out, send them and puk and go out, meaning send off their clothing and go out. Right? Meaning Rashi says, well, where's the yasam coming here? This guy who's working clearly has no place to live, so he's considered like a yasam. Take off their clothing and they're out, meaning their clothing. Okay, again, it's a Machlokes what the status is of their clothing. But even though the Mishnah says like Shmuel, the halacha is like Rav. Whether you have somebody who is makdish all his belongings, or somebody makes an erechin on himself, meaning he donates himself to the beis of mikdash. Doesn't mean he gives himself to the beis of mikdash. It means whatever he's worth. Right? There's a set amount for different people, depending on their age, how much they're worth. So so whether a guy makes all his nechasim hektish, or whether a guy donates the price of himself. Ein loy biksus ishtoi, meaning those that are coming to collect his money because he donated everything do not get the rights to his wife's clothing, and not to the clothing of his kids, and not any sort of clothing that he colored for them, and not any new sandals that were taken for them. So you see that the kids' clothing and the wife's clothing are not considered his, and therefore they don't become hektish. Yeah, fine. It's very nice you're saying that, but we have a Mishnah that sounds like Shmuel. So then why are you saying the law is like Rav? So the Pashup Pshat is like Shmuel, right? And Kima Yenispa, when you look into it, Hilchasok Kavasei the Rav, then the halacha is like Rav, my time. Ki Akni lo Adaitu Lamekum Kamei. When he was makna the clothing to his wife, that's because she's staying with him. The Mekum Kamei, she's going to literally means that she's going to stand in front of him. Adaitu Lamishkal Lamepet lo Yakni, but he didn't give clothing to his wife that she should take it and leave. So it's almost like he gave it to her, but tonight, right? So in the Mishnah, we're talking about where a guy made everything hektish. His wife is staying his wife, so therefore he gave her the clothing, and it's her clothing. But an almana who now asks her kesuba, so she's done with her husband. So therefore, what her clothing does not become hers, and therefore it gets subtracted from her kesuba.
How are we paskin today?
I have no idea how we paskin. How we push comes to shove, how we paskin. I don't know. I think we do paskin like Rav, and that's what the Gemara says, and that's the way it is in Shulchan Aruch. Right? If you look in Even Ezer, it says if a woman, an almana that's coming to collect the kesuba, we evaluate all her clothing, whether it's her Shabbos clothing, whether it's her weekday clothing, and we subtract it from the kesuba.
So basically, he could say to her, I bought you all this jewelry. I don't know you a dime. Have a good day.
Correct. Now, I don't know how we do this lamaisa nowadays. I have no idea. But that's what it says in Shulchan Aruch.
Everything that I ever bought you was on condition that it really belongs to me.
Yeah. No, that's what it is. I mean, that's the fact. You can't get around that.
Nope. Yep. Go tell your wife you bought it on condition.
You didn't buy it on condition.
If we stay together, if we don't stay together,
Yeah, that's true.
One thing for sure, if you get married, if I die and you get married to that next guy, nothing goes to you. Everything goes to the kids. You can go fly kite.
That's the way it is.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, I'm good. I ain't got no problem. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Zevi, your shver just left.
Yeah, okay, good.
It's late. That's why. Anyways, okay.
Yeah, every time Zev opened his mouth, both irons were beginning to look like pressure cookers.
Okay. Right. Kalsa Debei Rabbi Yashiv, the daughter-in-law of the house of Rabbi Yashiv. Right? Baro Yashiv, not Rabbi Yashiv. Yeah. She asked for the kesuba from the assignment, meaning from her what do you call it? From her either sons or stepsons, whichever it is. And then she went to bring them to Bezdin. Like we said before, she only loses her food from going to Bezdin, and now these guys pulled a zash shtick on her. Amri zilalon milsa the says it's embarrassing for us. It's cheap for us that she goes to Bezdin with such type of clothing. So Ozla levashtinu v'achsisinu l'kulemana. So then she got nervous, so she went and she put on all of her clothing. I'm not exactly sure why she did that, but that's what she did. Also, Lukamei de Ravina, and they came in front of Ravina. Amalu Hiltasakav say the Rav. We said Allah is like Rav. Damar Almana Shaman Mashallah. We evaluate everything that's on her. So what these guys do, they didn't want to pay her the kesuba, so they told her go. So they rigged it that she gets all of her clothing like this. Now instead of her wearing clothing worth, let's say $1,000, she's wearing clothing that's worth altogether $10,000. So they only had to give her the 10,000. Let's say assuming the kesuba's 20 grand. So they saved themselves 50% because they made her put on all her clothing. Even though we said before that it doesn't mean specifically that the clothing is on her. It just means all of her clothing. So why they have to go make her put it on? Because they're afraid she was going to be full of baloney. She wasn't going to tell them the exact amount of clothing. So they rigged it that she had clothing. So that was their way of making it that she's going to end up losing more money. Even though the way we just said it, she's not really losing any more money. It's just a way for them to.
They didn't tell her to put on. They didn't tell her to put on all the clothing. They just told her that they don't like what she's wearing. They didn't say put on all your clothing.
Correct, but somehow she did that, so that helped her out. That helped them out, right? Yeah, fine, okay. So that's we paskin like Rav. Clearly, the Gemara is paskin like Rav. Fine. Hahu the Amar lahu. So there was a man, and then he was a shchiv mira. Right, so Rashi says he was dying, so he said Medunya lebras. He said this and this amount of money should be set aside for the daughter to get married. Right? I don't know money, or it sounds like from the Gemara story that it's clothing and stuff like that. Right? Then what happened was Zol Medunya, the price of it went down. Right? Meaning, let's say he set aside a
fur coat.
10, let's say a fur coat, right? So the fur coat, when he said it was worth 1,000, now it went down to 800. So now, do these guys have to give this Yisaima to get married? Do they have to give her 800 or do they have to give her 1,000? So Rabbi Rabin, Purna Liyasmi, it goes to the Yisaimim. Meaning the Purna, the increase, whatever they get, they end up gaining. Right? And they just have to give the amount of money that would cost to buy your fur coat. So it would be 800. They don't have to give her 1,000. Then we have the opposite case. Let's
say that dowry burnt, that fur coat burnt. So what are they giving her based on the day that the father said?
That's the shaila. No, it's going to go with the cheaper of the two. Whichever one is cheaper, that's what they do. Because that's this next case, right? So Arba Meya Zuzi Min Chamra Lebras. He said, I'm giving 400 zuz of wine for the daughter. A Yaker Chamra, and then the price of the wine went up, right? So let's say it was one barrel that he had given that was worth 400, and now that barrel is worth 500. So do they have to give 500? Do they have to give that barrel, or can they just give a barrel worth 400? So Rabbi Yosef, Rav Chali Yasmi, the profit goes to the Yisayim, right? They only have to give her 400. They don't have to give her 500. Fine. Another story. Kriva to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan's relatives. We had this once before. This story, not this story, but story with Rabbi Yochanan's relatives a few blot ago. So Kriva to Rabbi Yochanan, Havalu Itas Abba. They had a wife of the father, who was making him lose a lot of money. She was eating a lot of food, this woman, and it was really costing them. So what are they supposed to do? So also look at Rabbi Yochanan. They came to Rabbi Yochanan, Amrulhu, Azilu, Va'amrulei, Lavuchen, the Niyachid lo Ara lemizarek. Go tell her that your father gave a specific field for her food. Meaning, instead of telling her whatever you send us the bill for your eating, they said, tell her that this is your field. Do what you want with it. That's in place of your food. Right? So also made the Rish Lakish, Amalahu, Kol Shekain Sheriv Lamazadis. Now they did even worse. Now, not only do they have to feed her, they also have to give her this land. So, meaning this land does not, Rabbi Yochanan was saying that the land will replace the food. Rish Lakish is saying, no, it's now you just messed yourself up even worse. You got to give her the land and you have to feed her. So Rabbi Yochanan, they told Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan didn't say this. He said, Zilu, Havula, go and give her the field. And if not, Mafikna, Lachu, Rabbi Yochanan, I'm going to take I'm going to take Rabbi Yochanan away from your ears. Meaning, he's going to put them into Cherem and you won't be able to ever listen to Rabbi Yochanan. So also look at Rabbi Yochanan. So then they came in front of Rabbi Yochanan to say like Rish Lakish is not allowing it. Again, Rabbi Yochanan had said, give her a field and tell her this is your food money and you're not getting more than that. And Rabbi Yochanan said you can't. Rish Lakish said you can't do that. You just made it worse because now you have to give her the field and you have to feed her. So Rish Lakish is very adamant that they have to listen to him. So then they came and told us to Rabbi Yochanan, somebody opposite me is disagreeing with me. Right? Rashi says it means that somebody who's on my level is disagreeing with me. So I'm not gonna fight. So Rabbo says, I understand what Rabbi Yochanan was saying. Amar the Mezainis, if he said that the father gave this field for Mezainis, Bibala Mezainis, then he has to give it in addition to the Mezainis. Amar b'Mezainis, but if the father said this field should be in your or with your Mezainis, I don't know, with, it's gotta be like in, meaning instead of, then Kotzas Mezainis, then it's a set amount of food coming out of this field, that's for her. So that's the way Rabbi Vo is explaining Rabbi Yochanan, and it really depends on the terminology used by the father. Right? So if the father says limizainis, so then he's saying he's giving the field for her food, but that doesn't mean it's exclusive to her food. But if he says bimizainis, then it is. Fine. All right, Hadron Allah Naira and L'chaim to all those that are drinking L'chaim. I don't have any seltzer with me. And then yeah, okay. Next parak. So so this next parak, where we get into more of the specifics of a kesuba. So most of this Mishnah we already had quoted before. So even though we said that a basula gets 200 in the kesuba and an almana gets 100, if they want to add even 100 mana, Yosef, you're allowed to, right? We'll see in the Gemara what the chiddush is of this. But even if you want to add on money to the kesuba, you're allowed to. If she becomes an almana or a grusha, bein min ha'eres and bein min ha'nesuin, whether they were engaged or whether they were married, koiva es hakol, she collects everything. Only if the husband died when they were married, does she collect everything. But from the Erisin, if they were only engaged, then the psula gets 200, and the Amana gets 100. There's no, the Tosefes kesuba does not go to her. He only, why? Because the husband only added on money to the kesuba, assuming that this lady was going to be his wife. But if she never made it to his wife, so therefore there's no Tosefes kesuba, only the beis kesuba. So that first part of the Mishnah is about adding things onto the kesuba. The second part of the Mishnah is subtracting things from the kesuba. Right? Rabbi Yehuda, Aimer, Imratza Kaisav Lepesula Shtar Shom Masayim. If you don't want to pay that much in the kesuba. So what you can do is tell the basula, here's a star of 200. And then she'll write, and I already got 100 of the 200, which is not true. But since she wrote that, therefore, he's only going to be mechuyev to do 100. Meaning, Rabbi Yehuda is saying you have to write 200 for a psula. You can't get around that. But if you want to be able to get it cheaper, so she could write that she already accepted 100. And the same thing with Almana, you can write in the kesuba, she gets 100. And she says, I already accepted 50, which is a farce.
Why would she do this?
I'm not sure.
She wants to get married to him.
Maybe the abused wife syndrome. I don't know.
She wants to get married to him.
I guess so.
So you're saying he's saying if you don't do this, if you don't agree with me, I'm not going to marry you.
It could be, or it could just be that she just loves it so much.
He wants a deal now, but she's looking at the big goal. He has 100 million in the bank, and he wants a deal now. So you got the deal.
Yeah, that's basically whatever the scenario is. I don't think she's the brightest bulb in the chandelier for doing this, but that's the way it is. Right? So Rameir disagrees. He says, Kol ha'paychas l'psulim imasayim. Anybody who gives less than a kesuba of 200, or less than an almana less than 100, arezu bilas nus, it's considered a bilas nus, right? Which the Gemara will see, right? Exactly what he means by this, because it's not a bias nus. It's just that the Chachamim have that power, which is grada loisosser, is this week's parsha. How do you know that all these Rabanans could be a deraisa? Because it says loisosser, you're not allowed to turn away from the Rabanan. Okay, so the Gemara says pshita, it's pashit, right? Why can't you add money onto the kesuba? Add as much money as you want onto the kesuba. The Gemara answers, no, the same kitsusa of the Rabanan. The Rabanan made a set amount. Why? So that somebody who doesn't have money shouldn't be embarrassed. So meaning you're going to go to a chasana, and everybody's going to listen to the kesuba. So, let's see how much money he plans on giving to his wife. And then this guy ends up giving the standard 100 to the almana, 200 to the. So everybody's going to say, this guy doesn't have any money, or he's a jerk, or whatever it is. So maybe the Chachamim didn't want that to happen, so they just made a standard price. Kamash Malon, that's not the case, and the Rabbanan were not concerned with this. And yes, one is allowed to add as much money as he wants onto the kesuba. Yeah, okay. We'll stop here. Tomorrow's daf is a pretty short daf, so we can stop.
The Sfardim add on to the kesuba?
Everybody really does add on to the kesuba, but Sfardim I think do it more. But we also add on.
How?
That
what
second,
do you mean?
if you listen to a kesuba, it's the haisif min delay oid meas kukim kesef.
More,
yeah. So we just put it all into one. But hopefully throughout the Masechta we'll figure out.
I remember Rabbi Herbst told my father for the second wife when my father remarried. He told us at that time $14,000, 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard.
She's a grusha. She was a grusha. The first
They
time.
say 5,000 now.
He said it to Machlokes, see them in the Litvish. Is that possible?
Yeah, it could be. Nowadays, anyways, they end up giving alimony for grusha for sure, and all these things.
Right. No, I'm saying a second marriage, I'm going to give if he dies, no?
Yeah, same thing with the first marriage. No different than the first marriage. No different than the first marriage.
Rabbi, what's I don't know if you remember the mice.
No.
I asked Rabbi Obam. He said 5,000 on a second marriage.
Yeah, 5,000. Okay,
Yeah.
so that means he owes 10,000.
Well, can I ask a stupid question? What's the difference in the first marriage and the second marriage?
Well, almana and it's 100. The kesuba is 100 as opposed to a psula. Kesuba is 200.
The woman's first or
And we're
second
mocking
marriage,
on that?
Naftali, not the man's.
What?
The woman's first or second marriage, not the man's.
No, I
Doesn't matter for
when
men.
we're makbid on that today.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Some
interesting. Are you
halacha.
asking me? Listen, the almanas that I was involved in, as far as I know, never got any kesuba, nothing. Right?
I don't know. He told my father a month before. My father gave me a check to give to her after he died.
Okay. Then 1 second. To your mother or to the second wife?
To the second one.
What about your mother?
My mother got the house. She got everything. She
Good, but
got
I'm saying,
everything.
but there was never an official. There was
No,
never
my
an
mother was
official-
first. No, my mother was first.
I would hope your mother was first.
No,
You
no,
have
my
bigger
mother was
issues.
son. No, my mother was first. Was Nifta first.
Of course. I mean, if your father got married to somebody else, that would be bad.
Yeah, no,
news.
I'm saying, yeah. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm saying
Can you put-
those of us that are
Yeah.
in that situation, we could talk like this.
Right.
But anyways,
Yeah.
well, maybe we can't. But okay, shine. But we did.
No, I'm not insulted.
But anyways, I'm saying my mother never got a kesuba. My mother-in-law, as far as I know, never got kesuba money. Right?
Yeah, okay, because that's what your mother. Your mother didn't.
You gotta pick
Your
up.
mother, because your mother didn't remember. I'm saying, I'm not talking about that part. My father didn't give me. Well, my mother was left first, but no, I'm saying the second wife. My father wanted to make sure everything was kahagan.
No, it's very
She
nice.
gets-
You're right. Because by a second wife, everything is
Well, I mean,
much
the
different.
house, it's much different. The house where it goes to the kid doesn't go to.
You're right. By a
It's-
second wife, it is much different. It's much different by a second.
It's much different. There's the whole mechanics is different.
Yeah.
What the chiyuvim are different.
No, the mechanics are different because you have kids who get involved, and you got to make sure that the second wife is taken care of. That's why.
Right.
By a first
Right.
wife, you hope. Everybody's on
Yeah.
the same page. But we've seen
Right,
enough.
right,
But that's not on,
right.
that doesn't happen either,
Right.
right? But yeah, I'm assuming that my mother still gets fed from my father's estate, right? So because she
Right.
hasn't tined it yet for the kesuba money. So right, we passed because money. You don't.
According to you, what you're telling me, if your mother was on a date, that's it. The Mazayin stops.
No, we didn't paskin like that. She has to go to Bezdin, right? We don't paskin like that. Was those sheep
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was not Tevei in Bezdin.
Yeah, so that's the name.
Yeah, it would be
All
a bad situation because I ain't got no money to give her. So it's like, but okay, there's no Yerusha. Okay, whatever. That's
Baruch Hashem, your mother should be happy.
yeah. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
Anyways,
All right. Bye,
Let's
Gizem.
see,
Take care. Shkoyach, good enough.
good enough.
I think that the last Gemara in the last parak is a real Gemara from the beginning of El, the Geshmak Chizik. Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, she's talking about Rish Lakish was half his age, his Adam, his own Baal Tshuva. And when they complained to Rabbi Yochanan about him, what does he say? Shekinegdi. So Rashi? The words of Rashi.
Yeah.
Anosh Ke'erki. The Roy Lachlik. That's all Rabbi Yochanan saw when he saw Rish Lakish. Not his Adam, not his young upstart.
He saw what? The what? The what?
It's someone who
was
was the
his
same as
son-in-law or
him.
was his brother-in-law? It was a brother.
His brother-in-law, sorry. His brother-in-law.
Right.
The what? He saw the what?
Someone who is the same worth as him. Rabbi Yochanan knew his value. He's the one who sat by the mikveh, right? He knew he was the Gadol Ador. But when he looked at Rish Lakish, he saw Enosh Karki, the man who has the same value as me.
Right.
Yeah, but but that was how they died. That's how they ended up dying, right? Because they had a fight.
Ooh. Yeah.
Rish Lakish. But you're right, they were equals, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
It is a chizik.
That's how we should look at people.
All right, good to know, Zim. What?
Yeah. That's how we're supposed to look at people.
Correct.
Especially at the beginning of Elul.
That's right. I hope you look at me like I'm your equal.
No way.
Yeah. Anyways, all right.
Yashikayach.
All right, Zagazant. Good night.
Good night.